Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm Tucker Hazel, and this is my slop drinking co-host, Abram Beener. And today we are here to do one of my favorite videos of every year, which is talking about the games that we have played in 2021 and which ones specifically were our favorite. But there's a caveat. Last year we did our list donkey style, as we said, which is just any games, including 2021 release games that we played that year. But we like to talk. We like to make long videos. We like to waste your time. So this year, we're talking about even more games by splitting the games that we played in 2021 that did not release in 2021 into a list, which is what we're talking about today, and the games that released in 2021 into their own video, which will be coming out indiscriminate time in the future. I don't know. So look forward to that and look forward to more of us just talking directly into your eyes and ears about video games. But Abram, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. And audience,
of course.
I appreciate you being here on this lovely whatever time you're watching it. If you want to join us more frequently, because we never stop, we never shut up, you can join our Discord, link in the description, and you can subscribe and ring the bell and like the video. And all those things make me happy personally. So if you want to personally make me happy, tickle my gizzard, if you will, do those things.
Now, Tucker, I'm going to take that wonderful intro baton from you for a second and add a little bit more to this because we, as Tucker said, these are games we played this year but did not release this year, and I put a couple more riders on that myself.
Sure.
So these are only games that I played for the first time this year, so no replays.
I did the same thing.
So shout out to Star Fox 64 and Sin and Punishment, which I played a combined 7 times between the two.
Yep.
Still two of my favorite games of all time, but those are not going to be included here.
Yeah.
Additionally, these are only games that I completed, but that's just because for me, the mark of a game I really loved is the game I saw through to the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are the only other caveats that I have to add.
I did about the exact same thing for my list. The only difference being there's a few games on here that you cannot complete. Puzzle games, mostly. It's hard. It's hard to beat one of these games at all. We're gonna get to there. But Abram, I talked a lot just now, and I'd love for you to talk to me about your game.
I don't really want to, but I suppose I can.
Yeah.
We'll start at number 21. Of course, we're going to keep adding a game every year. So when we're doing backlog banter in our late 70s, it's going to be a real fucking long video for all of you. But as spry 21-year-old man myself, we're going to start here with my number 21, which is Endless Ocean.
Oh, shit.
Endless Ocean is...
The crowd goes wild.
As we talked about on BLB, Endless Ocean is a really interesting game. It is the archetype of Nintendo's 7th generation Blue Ocean philosophy, and because of that, there are very few games like Endless Ocean that I've ever played. And it ended up being quite an interesting cerebral experience to see this pocket of Nintendo history that we don't really talk about. Eureka, the game's developer, hasn't gone anywhere. They made the 3D classics on 3DS, do a bunch of downloadable games like Dr. Mario Express and Dr. Luigi, and they're responsible for all the Battle Royale NSO games. So,
that's right. Yeah.
Tetris 99, Pac-Man, and Super Mario Brothers. But back in
we don't
the
talk
Wii
about
era,
that. Doesn't exist anymore.
Back in the Wii
never
era,
real. That's my new conspiracy theory. Super Mario Bros. 35 never existed in the first place.
But back in the Wii era, they made Endless Ocean, and it's a very interesting game. Is it particularly great? I don't know, probably not. But the experience of Endless Ocean is one that I felt was essential to my 2021.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
I mean, especially because you just played that like 3 weeks ago or something like that.
But God, I hope if it was only 3 weeks ago, this year has got to fucking end.
I have no idea what's going on, man. We got a lot of games to talk about here. Spinning off into my number 21, which is another strange corner of Nintendo history that we dived into this year, which is the Game Boy Advance land of Kururin, which is my number 21, which is a game that we reviewed, a card in the corner, if you so desire that discussion. But we came out on the other side of that review thinking, this is cute, this is fun, this is simple, this is clever, this is a strange pocket of Nintendo's history that's ostensibly only mentioned through the Halloran assist trophy that was in Brawl and Smash 4, I think. I don't even know if it's in Smash Ultimate. Guiding a little propeller guy through stages, fun, sure, why not? I recommend it. It's on the Wii U eShop, which is where we played it, Virtual Console. Good job, Kuroku. I really wish you had an easier to pronounce name though.
It's a great game, and it might show up in a little bit on my list.
Oh, now I actually just rewatched our top 20 games of 2020 from last year video, in which we did very similar things. I would say a game, you'd be like, we'll talk about this in a little bit. So let's see how much that continues this year. But one thing I'm very excited about for our list this year is, frankly, I do not expect almost any crossover whatsoever. Frankly, which is nice.
Yeah, because I don't think you have Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D on your list, but that is my number 20.
For some reason, I thought you didn't like that, but maybe I'm just misremembering.
I think it's probably my least favorite Donkey Kong Country game, but my least favorite Donkey Kong Country game I still like more than pretty much any other Nintendo platformer. Sure. As I've been thinking more about this game for various undisclosed reasons at the moment, I've come to really like the design philosophy here of where in New Super Mario Brothers kind of just regurgitated classic Mario Brothers just again and again and again. Retro was very deliberate with Returns and then with Tropical Freeze to take those tenets of country and make them bigger, take them to a scope the SNES could have never imagined.
Sure.
And be very deliberate about crafting worlds. And I just find this game incredibly compelling mechanically. And while I do think that Tropical Freeze is just the better game, it does this but better. There are so many great set pieces here, and I think it works quite well on 3DS. So number 20, Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D.
Number 20 for me is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake on Nintendo Switch, which was my 2D Zelda experience this year. Last year, I played Minish Cap, Link Between Worlds, and Link to the Past. But this year, I kind of took a step back. I only played Link's Awakening, but I'm glad I did. Very fun game, very unique for the Zelda world, kind of essentially leaving behind all of the basic world design tenets that you're used to of the other Zelda games, by which I mean, this is not Hyrule. You're not fighting Ganon. Like the story beats that get recycled over and over again in Zelda are not present here, and that's very refreshing. The world of Koholint Island is just unique in terms of a Zelda series, and it carries over the ideas from Link to the Past into something that does take its own spin on it, which I think is very refreshing. And the aesthetic of the remake is just top tier. I mean, this is one of my favorite Switch Nintendo art styles, period. And I'm very happy that it exists, even if it does chug occasionally. I think the only real problem with this game is, for whatever reason, it's not perfectly optimized for the Switch, and you get weird blur around the edges, you get a little bit of framiness, but otherwise it's entirely playable. It's not a broken experience, and experiencing the world of a Game Boy game on the Switch is very charming, and I highly recommend this game.
Yeah, I love it. I do think it's my favorite 2D Zelda game for most of the reasons just outlined there. So good choice.
Oh, thank you.
Now, Tucker, let's hit a double header here, because my number 19 game is Donkey Kong Country 3.
Oh, okay. Oh,
a little back-to-back DK action for you. This game is quite lovely and often maligned for featuring Kiddy Kong.
Well, yes.
Which I think is unfair. Kiddy Kong is a fucking galoot, but he doesn't really take away from the game necessarily. I think that if anything, the game might suffer from a feeling of iteration by the time we've reached the third game in the franchise. But nonetheless, I think it spices up the formula in one really critical way, which is its overworld, which I think might be one of the best overworld maps in any game, any platformer that I've played, in the sense that it's very explorative, the ways that you have to discover the different level hubs and move around in this free roaming area, this map area. It's not like, oh, we're going to walk across the line to the next node, and that node is going to be a world. It's a little bit more inventive than that.
Seems to have drawn inspiration from Kirby Star Allies and Super Lucky's Tale, I believe.
Yes. They traveled forward in time, and then to gain those lessons and traveled back in time to implement them.
Only learning from the best.
Only learning from the best. But beautiful pixel art. I think that Rare just really understood that tech by the time we got to the third title.
They understood it by the time they got to the first one, but then they really understood it when they got to the third one.
Because DKC 1 is fucking pretty.
Yeah,
but the 3 is gorgeous. It's so many interesting biomes and everything. So great game. These are all on NSO now, so you should fucking play them.
Sure. Well,
I'll finger wag to that.
All right. Next, let's hop over to what I believe was the first video game that I played this year and the first game that we reviewed this year, which I know everyone calm down. You're about to lose your goddamn minds, but Resident Evil 4 is my number 19 game that I played in 2021. This game has become a huge meme for me because I do not think that it's one of the greatest games of all time, which is an unpopular opinion, but I still think this game is fucking great. I absolutely love the environment design. I thought a lot of those side characters were really fun, memorable, and just the way that it is so clearly influential to every shooter and horror game and action game that came after it kind of sets it in a weird place where a lot of it felt like, okay, I've seen this before, but it's interesting to go to the roots of ideas like, quick time events or fucking whatever, like coming from this game, which obviously influenced a lot of people. This is one of those games that doesn't need my introduction because everyone knows that Resident Evil 4 is a good game. But I did certainly enjoy that game. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry that it's become such a meme.
Now, Tucker, believe it or not, we'll also talk about this one.
Yeah,
much later.
This is the one I expected to have crossover.
Yeah. Now, I would be very surprised if we had crossover with my number 18 game, which is F-Zero GP Legend.
Oh, Christ, yeah.
We talked about this one quite recently on BLB, but the reason I love this is it's such a great fusion of classic SNES F-Zero design tenets and F-Zero X mechanics. And sort of sits at this great intersection where I think that X and particularly GX get too fucking crazy with their track design. We maintain the simplicity of like that Mode 7 style, but we pack in some modern gameplay ideas to make what I think is my favorite F-Zero gameplay.
Wow, okay.
Now, I think that the structure of the game leaves a little something to be desired, particularly in terms of its campaign, but that core gameplay success is so fucking great that it easily earns this spot on my list.
Yeah, I can promise you the only one who has that game on their anything list this year. Frankly, I would not be surprised if you're the only one who talked about this game for the entire calendar year. But I'm probably not the only one who's talked about this game because this game actually got a very fresh sequel this year, which is WarioWare Incorporated Mega Micro Games with the S as a dollar symbol, which I've always thought was really funny.
Of course.
WarioWare on Game Boy is just weird. It's just wild. It has all of its own ideas. It doesn't really take anything from anywhere else, and that leaves you with a game that feels sort of timeless. This is a Game Boy game, and it has the pixel art to reflect it in the relative simplicity that comes with that platform, but it knows exactly what it's doing, and the WarioWare formula is so specifically crafted to just kind of mess with you, but in a really fun way, that even going back to a Game Boy game that released in the early 2000s, this game does not age at all. It is so finely tuned to this core gameplay experience of micro games and repetition and unlocking tiny weird things and having funky cutscenes that I just had an absolute blast with it. It's not particularly long. It's free on illegal, which is how I played it. And yes, everyone should go try WarioWare. I remember the summer direct or the E3 direct of Nintendo this year, watching the Get It Together, which is not on this list, though it would be, because I do think it's a better game. If we were talking about 2021 game, I remember saying, I don't really get WarioWare. This doesn't really make a lot of fucking sense to me. I don't see the appeal. But after playing two of the games, I'm surely a WarioWare fan, and I'm fascinated by this series.
Yeah, it's really great. I also played Mega Micro Games for the first time this year, and I think it's a good curiosity, but the series just gets just better and better and bigger and bigger. So my number one advice to anybody out there in the audience who might be looking to get into WarioWare would actually be to track down a copy of WarioWare Gold if you can. Because that's really the ultimate WarioWare game, and I think still the best in the series. But Mega Micro Games where it all started, and it's still quite good. But Tucker, if I can't talk about Sin and Punishment here, I can at least talk about another treasure shooter, this time from the GameCube, and this is Ikaruga. Ikaruga is a fucking hoot and a half, let me tell you something. This game is wild. It is wild, and I'm really bad at it. But there's just such an elegant dance here between the clusterfuck of beginning Ikaruga and then the slow progression of understanding that the game is actually about taking damage and figuring out how to weave through these stages in the face of like but more bullets than existed in all of fucking Normandy. Who really knows? It's a crazy game. It's crazy, but it's really, really great. It's so finely tuned and sharp. It's got a great horseshit treasure story that makes no sense. Really iconic design. Very, very good game. One that I continue to keep playing into 2022 so I can finally actually get good at it, because
finally
shmups are not my genre. But
yeah,
Ikaruga, very, very glad I picked it up.
shmups also not my genre. Ikaruga, the one I'm most interested in. And who knows, year of our Lord 2022, I'm going to become a COD guy. As everyone knows, I'm also going to become a shmup guy. We'll see.
I'm more of a halibut guy.
Okay. All right. Is that a fish reference?
It is a fish reference.
All right. For all you fish fans out there, bringing us to my number 17, which is another strange pocket of Nintendo history, and another one of the first games that I played this year, which is Yoshi for the Nintendo Entertainment System. This game is not talked about, and I think, you know what? For good reason. I mean, no one really cares about this game. This is a falling block puzzle game where you have to capture things inside of Yoshi eggs and create a combo that way. There's no real sideways matching. There's not, frankly, a ton of strategy, but the idea of setting up the pieces in a specific way of bottom of the egg, things in the middle, top of the egg, and just smashing it all down leads to a really compelling and simple, but I found to be very addictive puzzle game block falling experience. Those games were pushed out the fucking wazoo in the NES and early SNES days. But I do think this does something unique enough to stand on its own. And it's a gameplay formula that I do think could be expanded on. I don't think we're going to get a Yoshi sequel any fucking time soon. But the idea is there. I think this is again, a simple game, but one that I implore people to at least try so they know the core gameplay loop. Because again, this game is not talked about. It was one of the last NES games made. It sits in a weird place where it's just called Yoshi, which is weird. It doesn't really need to feature any, Mario characters or Yoshi characters or whatever, but it does. Whatever. It's a really fun game, and I'm glad I'm the only one talking about it, because it gives me a personal special connection to it, which is probably why it's still on this list. It's like I like being the guy who likes Yoshi.
It's a character trait.
Yes, exactly.
Of course.
That's usually what I tell people when I'm going on my first date. I'm like, there's one thing you have to know about me. I'm a fan of Yoshi on the NES. I know you don't hear that very often, but it's a little charming quirk about me. I'm not like the other girls.
Tucker, here's another thing that you don't hear very often when it comes to Nintendo opinions, Mario opinions in particular. We're going to talk about my favorite 2D Mario game here, and that is Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins.
I didn't realize you played through that this year. Yeah,
this game is great. And it's great because it has the 3D Mario quality of experimentation. The zones here are fucking bizarre. You get swallowed by a turtle, and then you play an underwater world. You go inside a robotic Mario, you start at his fucking foot, and you come out his head. It's just, the game has no interest in sticking to the traditional plain sand, water, lava structure that we see everywhere else. It's very ambitious for the hardware. It's so much closer to Super Mario World than even Super Mario Brothers 1, with Super Mario Land being even less impressive than Super Mario Brothers 1 in terms of its visuals and scope. So
it's better.
I actually haven't played Land 1. I need to play Land 1, but
I don't think you'll like it, frankly.
I don't think I will either. That's why I probably won't. But Land 2, just excellent. It's just perfectly bizarre, perfect length. A lot of stuttering, to be fair, because the game is pushing far beyond what this hardware should be able to do.
Very true.
But that's also part of its appeal. So
yeah,
maybe when Nintendo finally puts Game Boy games on NSL, more people will check this one out.
It's not gonna fucking happen. It probably will happen, but like 3 years from now, and we'll be like, well, it was too late. It was too late 5 years ago, but you did it anyway.
Just when we want it the most, 2024.
Yeah. All right. Well, actually, first off, I do want to say, if you like the creativity and off-the-wall nature of random world design in Super Mario Land 2, go play Psychonauts 2. I mean, it does that idea to the bazillion fucking degree. Like, the exact same design tenet is there. Like, why the fuck would we do why would the first level be a plains level when it can be a teeth level,
Sure, I think Miyamoto once said that.
I think that's a great classic Shiggy quote. All right. Moving on from Yoshi brings us something pretty entirely different, which is the Red Strings Club, an indie game set in a futuristic cyberpunk world where you are a bartender, and your job is to collect information off the black market people that frequent your hostel. That's not the word I'm looking for, but your humble bar in the seedy depths of this fucking cyberpunk city, and make them drinks that perfectly tickle their senses to let them give willingly information from their mouths. And what that allows you to do is piece together this really compelling cyberpunk narrative about lies and deception and corruption and all sorts of crazy bodily modifications and stuff like that, solely through interviewing people who are sitting down at a bar. And it really ends up becoming something that twists and turns, and you have, if you mess things up, it spins off the narrative into a new way that really ended up surprising me. An example being that I accidentally got someone killed in through one of my mistakes. I messed up my interrogation with them, and that's an important, believe it or not, someone dying is an important moment in a story, and I could have avoided that. So it's a game that has replayability from that angle. But as someone who doesn't really replay games, I like the idea that the story that I created, my mistakes and all, is the story that exists in my mind for this game. And it's beautiful pixel art. It's got a wonderful vibe, super unique concept, obviously. And it's on everything modern hardware wise. So I highly recommend this game.
Yeah, it's a great game.
You've not played this game. You don't fuck with me like that.
You know what game I have played, Tucker?
What, Abram?
Pokemon Snap.
Oh, Jesus.
Pokemon Snap is so good it made me hate new Pokemon Snap. I don't hate new Pokemon Snap. I just think that new Pokemon Snap is so much worse in comparison to the original here.
Sure.
Because the original is so pure. It is just, it knows exactly what to be, and it is that. It's a very short arcade-esque experience. Beat it in a couple hours, but you've only seen the tip of what Pokemon Snap has to offer in that way, because this island is so rich. You want to talk about eking a lot out of hardware. The ways they're able to bring the Pokemon world to life in this dumb fuck N64 cartridge is crazy. The Pokemon behaviors, the ways you can interact with them to make them evolve, it's all very charming and very fun. Now, you just throw in like hard shit at Pokemon to make them angry so you can take their pictures. So maybe
a little bit of a moral quandary.
Yeah, the fluff fruits in new Pokemon Snap are probably the best way to go there. But it's kind of neat to chuck a pester ball at a Charmeleon and knock him into a volcano, and then he springs back out as a Charizard. It's just full of great little puzzle moments like that.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I really think that this is one of the most exceptional N64 games, and certainly one of the best Pokemon spin-offs, period.
I'm very excited to play that game in 5 months when it comes to NSO, because it's part of the fucking lineup, but we have no idea when those games are coming out, which is very frustrating because this is high up on my interest level enough, as a Pokemon fan, as a Pokemon spin-off fan, as a fan of new Pokemon Snap, kind of. But I'm really excited to play this, but Nintendo's not helping me to do that. So what the fuck, Nintendo? You know what else Nintendo is not helping us to play? Game Boy games on GBA games on Nintendo Switch Online, bringing us to Metroid Fusion, my number 15 game that I played this year, which is the Metroid experience that I was looking for when I played Super Metroid, frankly. What this game does to the Metroid formula is segment it, and that allows it to tell a much more compelling narrative that fleshes out Samus more as a character and connects you more to this world and the stakes that she's in, and contextualize the environments that she's exploring. And the ship that the entire game takes place on, can't remember its name in particular. You might be able to help on that. The BSL. That sounds like some sex thing. But is very clever in that it has simulated environments inside the ship. So you're exploring these metal hallways and ship, but then you'll drop down the elevator and it'll be an alien planet, but an alien planet that's sort of placed over vents and fans and electrical wires and stuff like that, which gives all the visuals a really unique flair. I mean, not a lot of games combine life, natural organic stuff and mechanics like that. And I really found it to be super fresh and fun. And good God, does it look great for a Game Boy Advance game.
The third game we'll be revisiting much later down on this list. But instead, Tucker, I'll make you a bit of a trade here. I'll pick up a thread you picked up earlier and talk about my next game, which is Kururin, which is now it's my Yoshi. This is my liking game. Makes this my personality game.
Sure. Yeah.
This game is just really wacky, and that's fun. It's fun to discover a game that is this simple yet this endearing and so overlooked.
Yeah,
this is the first.
Overlooked. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's the first of a 3-game series. 1 releases in Japan and Europe. 2 releases only in Japan on GBA, like the first game. 3 releases only in Japan on GameCube, which I actually have, and I've started playing. But it's just so great. There aren't enough games like this that take one, really just one mechanical idea and follow that to its natural conclusion. It's very much to me like Super Monkey Ball in that respect.
Sure.
And because of that, I just find it so compelling to try to understand the ways the Hellerin moves and navigate these more and more complex stages. It's all quite impressive. So give me a new one on the eShop, even though that's not going to happen.
That would. Can you imagine us watching a Nintendo Direct and it's like, what's this line? And there's like the dumb fucking Nintendo eShop announcer, and he's like, "Whoa, what's this?" And it's like, "Huh? Hell, Tururin is coming to Switch," and we're like,
Tururin.
What? Whoa!
It'd actually be Forurin.
And everyone else is like, "Huh?" Well, yeah, I know, but no one even knows the other ones exist. I mean, no one knows this one's exist.
Yes,
this one exists, but even less people know the other ones exist. Okay, all right. Keeping in the realm of shit that no one else cares about. Picross 3D on the DS is a surprisingly fascinating, developed game.
Yes,
for the DS, as I said. This is Picross in 3D, fucking believe it or not. But it is so impressive that they were able to create very completely rendered, very smooth 3D blocks on the DS. 3D graphics on the DS, I'm really almost never a fan of. It always looks a little awkward. It's always placed in a weird angle, so you can kind of get a depth of field, but it never really works. But the idea of just placing something in a simulated 3D space and moving it yourself, moving it around, looking in holes, stuff like that, works surprisingly well on the 3D. On the DS. And it's a very unique formula, a unique spin to the Picross formula, which is something that I very much enjoy. And it allows for a different kind of Picross strategy that is very easy to control. There's controls on the D-pad and your stylus, and that's all you need. And I really found this game to be super charming, especially with the surprising amount of animations that this game has, which is you complete turning a brick into a giraffe, and the giraffe goes and flops around and stuff. And it's like, how'd they do that? Why'd they do that? I don't know. It's fun. It's charming, and another very overlooked game, especially developed by a famous developer. I mean, obviously everyone knows Hal, but do they know they made this? No.
Who's Hal? You mean the computer from 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Yeah. I forgot he was making games still. All right,
Tucker, I have never played Picross, but maybe by next week I will. That's my bit.
Last year you said multiple things that made me very excited about what games you'd be playing in 2021, and almost none of them came to fruition.
This will excite you though. My next game is Katana Zero.
Oh, a game I haven't played.
Katana Zero is really fucking cool. This game is this like neon soaked like ninja game, but it's not necessarily Ninja Gaiden-esque because that's not quite the spirit of this.
Sure.
It's one, as Donkey says when he praised this game back in one of his year-end videos, like the secret to this one is that one hit kill. And he's right, because the sort of fluidity you get into when you're just fucking going nuts trying to clear a room before you get killed is quite compelling. It's this awesome intersection of skill and trial and error that feels completely earned when you just clear a room full of dudes. At the same time, it's quite the interesting narrative about, it starts to get kind of heady, cyberpunky with the PTSD and the fucking big corporations and all of this, but there's quite a heartfelt through line with your main character, and It's quite the excellent game. I really think you should play this one.
I do
It's
too.
short. It's the perfect length.
I went to
Great
go
mechanics.
download it on Xbox Game Pass.
It's gone, right?
No longer an Xbox Game Pass,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's a game that is on every platform I could want it to be, and I'm sure it'll go on sale for 25% off at some point. And I'm certainly not above playing Katana Zero.
Very good.
So here we come to an interesting one. My number 13 is one of the few times that Abram Buhner has suggested me a good game, which is, of course, Tetris Effect Connected, which we're gonna get to that one higher up on the list. But Tetris Effect Connected is the ultimate version of Tetris in that it takes the idea of being in the zone of Tetris and pushes every aspect of its design to increasing that immersion and the game flow state and all sorts of experiential properties that come with being addicted to a puzzle game. But now the puzzle game is actively getting you addicted to it. It's using sound and light and music and level gimmick to make you absorbed into just making sure you get everything clear. And I really think that it's the ultimate way to play Tetris now that it's on every system, especially. And it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous and beautiful, believe it or not. And it has a phenomenal soundtrack. And there is a campaign mode, which is why it's on this list. I mean, if it was just playing Tetris, I'm not sure I would have gotten super into it, but the fact is that there are different levels. There is a progression of difficulty, and it does introduce small things, but different kinds of mechanics and different levels to keep you engaged. And I found that to be really compelling as well. Where I'm a fan of Tetris, played Tetris on NES, played, Tetris in all sorts of different places, but this one with all its different facets was the one that finally hooked me. And you know what, Abram, thank you for making me play it.
Yeah, as you said, we'll talk about this one much later. However, I will say right here that much like myself, Tetris Effect Connected is the complete package, and it does have a very great content suite.
Yes.
This is not, let's just go clear some Tetris lines and call it a day. You've got journey mode. You have a great suite of online options. I played quite a bit of that with my friend Jonathan when I was reviewing it for an Indie Fresh. It really is a tremendous experience. But in the short term, I'll talk to you about another game I recommended you. But I think you played like half an hour of it on illegal only, and that is Star Fox Assault.
Oh, that's true. Well, I played like 90 minutes of that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about Star Fox Assault. I think Star Fox Assault is quite flawed. I think that it trades focus for ambition, and in some respects that's quite exciting, but in others it just ends up feeling weaker than Star Fox 64.
Sure.
Nonetheless, I think the direction that it takes Star Fox in is the best direction Star Fox was taken in post 64.
Sure.
Bandai Namco, when we're in one of those R-Wing missions, they're dynamite. They are absolutely dynamite. They nail the set pieces. They nail the feel of the R-Wing. I think this is the best that all range missions I've ever felt, because even replaying Star Fox 64 a couple times recently, I still chafe at those all-range missions a little bit, but here they're just bigger. They flow better. Things like the orbital gate assault are great. And then you get on foot and things get a little bit messier. I still think that the on-foot stuff is compelling and an interesting direction to take Star Fox. It maintains all of those tenets, but I think it gets lost in the weeds a little bit just with how many missions of that type there are.
Sure.
Nonetheless, I think that this package, the ways that it expands the Star Fox roster, makes the narrative a little bit more in-depth, engaging, taking it away from just Andros, giving us this new dimension to the gameplay formula, and packing in what is definitely the best multiplayer offering in the series, makes this game, I think, essential for Star Fox fans to play through, although, in my opinion, the definitive second place behind 64.
Yeah. I think really the only problem comes in that there really just aren't Star Fox fans, so no one's gonna play this game.
You make a really compelling point.
No, but I agree with what you said. From what I played, I'm pleased that the game exists because it does fill that hole that I think a lot of people do feel Star Fox is missing, which is that ambition, variety, to bringing it closer to, frankly, what we expect video games to be, which is having more grand story, which is having different kinds of gameplay segments. And I just think the game is a little too clunky for my liking. When I played it, I was like, I was trying to figure out, oh God, I got to pull up my gun and look up there and I got to get into the thing. And I'm like, oh, my controls changed now that I'm in the fucking plane. So I got to figure that out. That I think could all be and should all be smoothed over in another high budget next gen Star Fox title. I think that if they did that, it could be a very great game. But what's there is, I think you're right, ambitious is the right word to use, but it almost too ambitious for its own good.
Yeah, it certainly suffers from being a pre-standardized third-person shooter.
Yeah, and on the GameCube with the weird sticks that it has.
Where like that stick was never even considered like a second analog stick.
Yes,
for most GameCube games. Yes. So that's a whole fucking can of worms. But nonetheless, Star Fox Assault quite a great game in my opinion, especially as a Star Fox fan.
All right, we're in a nice run of puzzle games right now, and I think I'd like to
Star
continue
Fox Assault and Katana Zero.
Continue that trend. I'm just only thinking about myself. I kind of turn my brain off at the top.
Oh, of course.
We're going to talk about the superior falling block puzzle game, which is Dr. Mario. Dr. Mario 64 in specific, which is sort of the culmination of the Dr. Mario formula. Now, I have not experienced Express, although I don't know if you can anymore. I think it might be one of those games that's lost the time.
Was that on DSiWare?
I think so. Yeah.
I
haven't experienced all the Dr. Mario games, but I think this is the most complete package of Dr. Mario. A really expanded multiplayer suite, a lot of pretty superfluous but fun cosmetic options for just mixing up what you're looking at. And what hooked me the most, but also equally frustrated me the most, is a campaign mode that tells a really dumb fuck story through storybook cutscenes and just ramps up in difficulty, which I think is compelling in its own way, though. Again, I ended up finding it kind of frustrating, but still, when I think of Dr. Mario and how much I enjoy that gameplay format and how decent I am at it, I think placing it into a game that is more content complete than the first game has like 3 options in it total, it definitely brings it to its natural conclusion. And it's another game that's overlooked and one that I'm very, very happy is available on NSO online, the N64 online. I don't think anyone's really going to play it, but if you're watching this, you have the N64 expansion pass. I implore you to go give it a try. I mean, if you haven't played Dr. Mario before, it could be a little bit confusing, but the game does have a lot to try in terms of different game modes and the campaign and all of that. So Dr. Mario 64 is the best falling block puzzle game I played this year.
Maybe we should start 2022 with a review of Dr. Luigi and see if we can find a new.
Do you have any idea how happy that would make me? I would fucking do that in a heartbeat.
I'm not opposed to that, is all I'm going to say. But Tucker, before we get to those sorts of discussions, we ought to discuss in its proper location on a list of this magnitude, Resident Evil 4. Now, Resident Evil 4 is the only Resident Evil game I like. So I just invalidated my opinion too. Yeah. But I think Resident Evil 4 just nails what I think other entries in the series fail to do, which is a number of things, which is the intersection between camp and gothic horror, the intersection between traditional survival horror and action. It's got the right pacing. I think it moves at a great clip, taking Leon to all these diverse locations with memorable characters. It definitely is archetypal in some respects, but that's because it set the archetypes. Yes. And for me, I always love this sort of Japanese lens into Western trope. And because of that, I just think that this game is so lovely in that respect. It is an action game. It is a survival horror game. It is a campy B movie. It's a blockbuster action film. It's a whole lot of things. And the intersection of all these identities is quite a remarkable game. My roommate was playing through it for the first time towards the end of the semester, so I was backseat gaming him quite a bit and having fun.
Can't imagine how annoying that would be.
Yes, because he's not good at it. He wasn't playing it right. I had to instruct him, but it's quite the remarkable game. Quite the remarkable game.
Let's move on to my number 11, which is Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which is just one of the most creative and unique gameplay ideas that Nintendo has had in modern times. This is not a gameplay style that is seen very often. The idea of creating a small puzzle world that you're just turning in your hands and figuring out what's going on, but designed with such lush intent and so much variety. I think this game's greatest strength is there's like maybe 2 levels in the entire game that are similar. and that's it. And there's like 100 levels in this game, and everyone has its own idea. Everyone introduces its own gameplay mechanic. It's always remixing things that you're familiar with from other Mario games and creating its own identity. And I think this really deserves a second chance to be fleshed out, because what this game lacks in compelling progression, it has a very weak story, very bare bones. It doesn't have almost any side content. It makes up for it in, as I said, variety and creativity and unique charm that a sequel could just make it probably one of my favorite games of all time if they do end up fleshing it out a lot more. But what's there is so compelling. And for the accessibility of it being on Switch, Wii U, and 3DS, I think, although I haven't played the 3DS version, all of which solid ways to play it, go experience this game. There really is almost nothing like it. And it is a subsect of weird Nintendo design that I think gets overlooked because it is a spin-off of 3D World. So I don't know. I definitely highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's quite an exceptional idea. And I really, really hope we get that sequel to I think take it to the place that it can be.
100%.
But Tucker, we got a little bit of a Nintendo opus here that I finally completed. One of the grandest holes in my gaming catalog, that was Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time.
I finally beat it this year. And I think this game is quite excellent.
Ocarina of Time 3D though, right?
Yes, Ocarina of Time 3D. The game is iconic, and I
believe it or
think
not, yeah,
that iconography is why this game is special, but also why it ends up probably feeling lesser than a Wind Waker or something for me. When I'm playing through this game, I'm so endeared by its characters and its version of Hyrule, and the simplicity to which the dungeons and the story are presented, but how great it's nailed. Right? You think about how Wind Waker complicates the formula with new dungeon archetypes in the Great Sea, and that's this formula done differently and done, in my opinion, with more ambition, but not as much finesse and polish as this.
Sure.
The Ocarina of Time structure of get the medallions, do the temples, do the story, defeat the Ganon man. It'll never be done better than how Ocarina of Time did it first.
Interesting, yeah.
The games that come after do it differently. And sometimes I think that difference is more compelling, but there's something incredibly comforting about how exactly Nintendo nails this design philosophy here.
Yeah.
And because of that, I just find this to be one of the timeless games. I do not think it is the best game of all time. As I discussed, I think interactivity has moved beyond sort of some of the contextual button presses here and some of the more simplistic elements, but nonetheless, this is an absolute masterpiece. So believe it or not,
people like Ocarina of Time. Good. Yeah. But this is an actual, believe it or not, because
we're in the top 10 now, right?
We are top 10. Blah, 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 blah. This is an actual, believe it or not, because this is a game that I do think gets very overlooked, and for one very specific reason, which is that Uncharted Golden Abyss is locked onto a piece of hardware that does not facilitate people actually trying it. This is a game that is ambitious beyond its own comprehension. It is so damn close to the world design, the writing, the adventure aspect of the original trilogy of Uncharted that people kind of just think, oh, it's, why even bother at this point? We've gotten 3 of them. But I do think what it lacks in the pure scope that the Vita could not handle, it makes up for in its own ideas that the other Uncharted games don't have. A focus on treasure hunting, a different kind of fleshing out of Nathan Drake's character as he's interacting primarily with other characters that aren't in the rest of the series, creating a more compelling lore for why Drake is here, for the world that he's exploring and uncovering and why that's important. And then a twist at the end that I found to actually be much more compelling than fucking zombies showing up in Uncharted 1 or I don't even know. Like all the Uncharted games have a weird like mystical spin that this one, which I think is fun in its own way, but this one ditches that for something that's actually pretty serious. And why the villain's doing what they are. And also I just found it to be a really smooth, very replayable, very accessible gameplay experience for the Vita. The problem is you have to have a Vita. That's really the only problem with this game. So I think people should. I can't really say people should buy a Vita and go play this game because I don't know if this game by itself is worth buying a $150 console and a copy of the game to play. But if you have the means, I highly recommend it. This is a phenomenal entry in the Uncharted franchise. And my thesis statement for this game will be and will always be, someone trying to rip off Naughty Dog is still better than most games that exist.
Yeah. I really hope it gets ported off Vita eventually.
Yeah.
I feel like that window has probably closed. I think it probably made more sense a couple of years ago. But I don't know. It's certainly a game that deserves to be experienced beyond the context of this. I mean, Sony has to do something about the fact that Vita's library is fucking locked to that one piece of hardware. So hopefully a solution to that extent releases, whether that's on PS5, whether they release a fucking dual sense with a back touch or something, who knows? But I hope more people get to try that game. I'd like to give it another shot personally.
It would also need a back camera, because one of the gimmicks that we referenced in our discussion on BLB is that you have to hold it up to a light to see through paper, which is a very cool moment. It's only one of them in the game. But you need a camera to tell if there's light behind the fucking controller. And why would they put a camera in the bottom of a controller?
I would love to see them do a fucking Splatoon 1 Battle Dojo type solution where you fucking shoelace tie your smartphone to the back of your DualSense and USB-C to see it together to fucking play Vita games, but that would never happen. But this is why Mark Cerny should hire me.
Sure. Yeah. You're the man with the plan.
Now, Tucker, I'm making an 11th hour change to the order of the next two games. Because I want to talk about, they're both in the same series.
Okay.
But the more I think about it, I must speak my truth and say that my number 10 game is Metroid Samus Returns.
Okay.
Metroid Samus Returns is, I think, quite a remarkable game, and prior to Dread, the most fluid Metroid experience.
Sure.
Now, I think it is somewhat held back by the structure of Metroid 2.
Yes.
The
problem is that it's Metroid 2.
Yes, but nonetheless, I think that linearity in Mercury Steam's experience in this genre creates this experience where the game is streamlined in a way that facilitates exploration without ever really getting you lost.
Sure.
And that counts for a lot, I think. While it might take away a particular dimension of the experience for some people in their appreciation of the Metroidvania genre, for me, it gets us closer to the moments where this series really thrives, which is in feeling immersed in an alien world, but not actually lost in it.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think this game is quite exceptional. And while Dread kind of ate its lunch on a mechanical level, its introduction of the melee counter and the free aim and the more action elements, kind of other M-esque being put into 2D Metroid, just made that formula so much more fluid. So Samus Returns, quite a great game, but Dread definitely, iterated upon that in a much grander way, as you'll see in our next video about our favorite games of the year. So
yeah. Definitely on my list to play. As I've gotten more into Metroid, I think having played both Fusion and Dread this year, I really respect what Samus Returns did in terms of adding those action elements, which I do think are going to end up, as the series grows, presumably being more influential than maybe people realize, like including a melee counter and a dodge and action elements and free aiming. Like those are core elements of Metroid now. Like you can't take those away now that they've introduced those. And I think the game does get overlooked in terms of it being a remake, but being a remake that really steps the series forward. I mean, there hadn't been a 2D Metroid game in a fucking decade before that, but it does have its own ideas, and I think that's very important. It
might as well not be a remake. It's a Resident Evil 2-esque remake in terms of how different it is. You bought this rig too, right? You have a copy?
Yes, I do. It's in my shelf back in Lincoln. Let's bring us to my number 9, which is one of the most surprising games that I played this year. I don't even know what you're responding to. Wolfenstein the New Order is a game that I frankly thought I would not like when I started it. And not for any particularly gigantic reason, but I do think that the opening to this game is easily the worst part of it. Opening on just a fucking World War II beach battle scene. Okay, fine. But then your character gets knocked out for like 20 years. And he wakes up, the Nazis have taken over the entire fucking world, and you have to fight alongside an underground resistance group inside of a giant Hitler statue in the middle of fucking Germany to uncover the secrets and battle everyone. And this fort that you're in is built around a giant pillar, and there's fucking rooms cobbled together, and you're always going on these crazy rescue missions and shit. It's so wacky in a way that you don't get from World War II shooters almost ever. I obviously there's a sequel to this game, which I believe from what I know is wackier, but what this game leans into is an aesthetic and a world design and a concept of the Nazis having taken over that does recontextualize what I think of as a World War II shooter. And I really ended up becoming engrossed by this game and its world and its characters in a way that I don't expect to out of games of this type. So I'm very pleased to have finally given this game a try. And the year of our Lord 2022, Wolfenstein 2, probably on my list.
You gotta play New Colossus, dude. It's so it is so fucking. You think this game is zany? The next one is insane, and that's why it's so excellent. The Wolfenstein games, I really think, are some of the first person shooters. I really love them, and I'm very glad that you ended up liking this one as much as you did. And I think you're going to like New Colossus even more.
Yeah.
So, Tucker, let's talk about another Metroid game. There's still another one coming in a while, but in the midst time, I want to talk to you about Metroid Prime.
Oh.
Metroid Prime, much like Ocarina of Time, is another one of those Nintendo touchstones that I had played but never finished and needed to complete. And I did. And this was the playthrough in which Prime finally clicked with me. And I finally understood why this game is the masterpiece that it is. Now, I think that people who say this game is perfect are high on crack. But nonetheless, in spite of the artifact hunt, in spite of some of the more heavy backtracking components or sort of backgrounded narrative elements, the sort of environmentally driven, more cerebral experience of playing Metroid Prime and becoming immersed in the little details of a reflection of Samus's face in the visor, the sort of craziness of having a Metroid latch onto your head and your screen goes fuzzy. All of this, the ways that you become one with Samus and the ways that the environment just sort of envelops you in this beautifully designed landscape. I don't think we give enough credit to Retro Studios. When you think about how intricately designed a 2D Metroidvania map is, and then you add the fucking Z-axis to that, it's remarkable the game turned out the way it did. I think that this is truly, truly a special game that illustrates the ways that we can tell an engrossing narrative and compel an adventure without traditional means of storytelling.
Sure.
Now, I would have liked a little bit more of those means of storytelling because I think that this world is so rich. However, for what Prime is striving towards, it nails it. Prime is really great. And if that, I will be very, the persistent rumors that we're getting some degree of remaster or remake of Prime 1.
Yes.
I personally don't think that's an especially compelling idea. I would have much rather the trilogy is redone in sort of a Crash Bandicoot or Spyro Monkey Ball style. But nonetheless, if they bring it back next year, I implore people to play this game because I think.
Here's the thing: I don't think it's going to be hard to sell people on playing a Metroid Prime remake.
I don't think it's going to be in a post-Dread world, but we have to remember how poorly Metroid sells.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I hope that this game gets to push it needs to set up the Prime series for the success the 2D Metroid games have now found with Dread.
You talking about Nintendo touchstones that you just had to beat, that you'd never finished, brings me to my number 8, Super Mario 3D World. A game that I had probably played like 75% of, like 4 different times in my life, but just never pushed to the end, which is ridiculous because this game is unnecessarily short. This is a very quick game, even for someone who went through and essentially 100% at each of the levels. Though I didn't go back and do the fucking top of the flag bullshit that they wanted me to. But Super Mario 3D World is that same idea I was talking about Captain Code Treasure Tracker, but put into the 3D Mario mechanics that I find to be personally more engaging. I love 3D platformers. I love collectathons. I love visual variety and concepts and level gimmicks, all of which, as I said, are in Treasure Tracker, but it's because Treasure Tracker was taking the design philosophy of 3D World. I mean, directly, it was made by the same team. 3D World is, I think, the most varied that a Mario game has been in terms of each of the levels having its own idea and its own identity and barely ever repeating. I mean, there's maybe 1 or 2, like you talk about fucking Super Bell Hill or the one with the wheels, like those are pretty similar, but even then it has its own idea. There's no 2 levels that are the same. And I really think this game nails what it's trying to do in terms of taking 2D Mario and 3D Mario, their design philosophies, and meshing them together in a really compelling way that makes its previous entry, Super Mario 3D Land, absolutely fucking obsolete and just makes this game shine even brighter. And in the remaster that it has been released on Switch, alongside Bowser's Fury, alongside tweaked controls and movement speed, this game is more playable, more accessible, and looks better than ever. And you can play it online with your friends, even if I think it might be a little janky, but I don't even fucking know. I never tried it. I obviously 3D World, good, very good game.
It's a fucking hootenanny. This game is fantastic. It's just so you hit the nail on the head. It's endlessly creative. I think it's probably my second favorite Mario game. So, but Tucker, let's get off the fucking Nintendo binge for a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, with Wolfenstein the New Order and Uncharted Golden Abyss. You know what I'm saying?
Let's talk about Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, Christ, getting off Nintendo and going to fucking Star Wars, out of the frying pan into the fry. You know what I'm saying?
This game is one of, if not the definitive Star Wars video games. Now, is it in 2021 like it was in 2003? Well, I don't know about that. However, what KOTOR did was enamor me to its narrative, to the invention of its storytelling, the degree to which its RPG fluidity informs that story and those characters and the relationships you build and the ways you create your character to your moral specifications and your path through the universe. It is an iconic Western RPG. This is a defining game in the history of games. We would not have Western RPGs on console as we do without this title, and we would not have the measuring stick for Star Wars experiences that we do if not for KOTOR. When KOTOR Remake comes out, assuming Aspyr doesn't fuck it up, and I don't think they will because they've actually worked intimately with KOTOR 1 and 2 in the past in a porting capacity, KOTOR will be one of my 5 favorite games of all time.
That would not surprise me, frankly.
That's all I have to say.
But you know what might surprise you? Is much like making Yoshi a part of my fucking dumb, I'm not like the other girl's quirky personality. My number 7 game of 2021 is Kicks for Game Boy. Now,
Okay.
I'm talking about Tetris Effect Connected. I'm talking about Super Mario 3D World and Wolfenstein Uncharted. Oh, who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares? Number 7 is Kicks for fucking Game Boy. A game where you move your cursor to capture some land and try to avoid a spinning deal in the middle. Why do I like it so much? Could not fucking tell you. I think I just love the idea of the strategy of risk versus reward, moving your cursor out and trying to capture as much land as you can before the thing comes back and tries to kill you. It provides a very unique gameplay loop. You can actually strategize quite a lot in this, that you can build out little tiny spires, then connect back to the side and bam, wipe out half the screen. There's a lot of depth in this game that is not obvious from square one. And this is one of the first games that I found myself emulating on my computer. And it's another one of those games where I was playing, I'm like, well, whatever. I just want to see it. It's got a funny name. But then I played it till like 4 a.m. one day. And I've found myself really enamored by simple puzzle game ideas this year, as you've probably noticed through my list. And this just sort of took the cake in terms of it's not a falling block puzzle game. It's not a ripoff of fucking Tetris or of any of the classic puzzle game formulas. It's totally its own thing. And it's a game that has been done a bazillion times on basically every platform. But that's because this bare bones idea is very compelling. It is very addictive. Kicks is my number 7 game that I've played in 2021. And if you don't like that, you can fucking suck my middle finger.
Now, Tucker, I made a mistake here. Because my next game is a game I've played before. This is not a new completion. I fucked up. But at this point, it's too late.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about it anyway. It's Metroid Fusion.
That's true. You played that last year, didn't you?
I beat this game several years ago. This for a long time was my favorite Metroid game. I replayed it for Ninty Fresh 5 when we were doing the retrospective. So I got my Fucking wires crossed there.
Mhm.
But at this point, what can I really do? It's too late. Fuck you. I'm breaking my own rule, and I'm just going to talk about Metroid Fusion for a second because the game's really goddamn good.
Mhm.
It's my second favorite Metroid now in a post-Dread world, but basically all of your praises for it stand. And I guess maybe try to do a make good here, the new takeaway I got from the game this year, at least, was that it offers another avenue into Metroid.
Sure.
It is not the traditional Metroidvania experience. It's far closer to an action platformer in terms of the scale of the bosses, the linearity of the construction of the biologic research labs, as it's referred to, the BSL.
Where's the S come in?
BSL station, biological research station labs. I don't fucking remember. It stands for BSL. Who cares? I've been flustered by the fact that I broke my own rules, but nonetheless, you know what? Fusion's such a good game that fuck it. It can sneak on the list anyway.
Sure. Is that all I have to say?
I guess so. Clerical errors all around, but fucking good game.
All right. We're really getting into the fucking big boys here. I know you say top 10 is the big boys, but I had a very weird year with video games this year, in which I played a lot of stuff that I thought was just okay. And a lot of the stuff on this list is very good, and I like them a lot. But eking into my top 6 here are games that I unequivocally adore. I like Kicks a lot, but it's Kicks. I mean, it's not up in that upper echelon.
Sure.
But my number 6 of game I played in 2021, Unravel, is possibly the most creative 2D platforming experience I've ever seen in my life. The way that it takes the sort of fun aesthetic of being small in a big world with something like Chibi Robo or Pikmin, but places it in immaculately rendered 2D environments that naturally play you through their worlds and use real world physics and like ropes tying things together to make a very believable world, and puts it in the hands of the character Yarny that has one of the most satisfying platforming movesets I've ever experienced, in which you can use your body to throw a rope onto a thing, swing off it like a fucking grappling hook. You can pull yourself up a wall. You can build a bridge and spring off of it. You can tie things down. You can tie things together. And all of this is put into this really well done world with a very heartfelt story behind it. Everything about this game is polished and focused and so damn beautiful. I mean, this game is just phenomenal. And I really do think it's overlooked in the pantheon of 2D platformers, of course, a genre that is just been fucking beaten to death for a good reason because it's just popular. But it did something different, which you don't usually see for 2D platformers. You know, you're either ripping off Mega Man, you're ripping off fucking Mario, you're ripping off, I don't know, Donkey Kong, yeah, whatever. But I would think to rip off Unravel, because the idea of giving you a physics-based puzzle moveset put into intricately designed 2D levels is just unmatched. And this game is on Game Pass, and it is easily the best EA game that I've ever played in my life.
Tucker,
Unravel is really phenomenal.
I'll make you a promise.
I never believe your fucking promises. I never believe your promise. You said you were going to play. You said you were going to play fucking
I played
Professor Layton this year.
That seems like an outrageous thing for me to have said. Did I say that?
You did.
Oh, well, it's a good thing I did, because my next game is Professor Layton and the Wonderful Apple, whatever that fucking game is called. No, my next game is Bayonetta 2.
Oh, of course it is.
Bayonetta 2 bangs. This game is awesome. This is Platinum's video game. I'm tired of people talking to me about Nier Automata. It's not very good. The Platinum game that matters is Bayonetta 2. Bayonetta 2, I think, is the best character action game I've ever played. That spot used to belong to DMC5. But Bayonetta 2, I think, is even better than that. The reason I love this game so much is that it finds this excellent style. The opening minutes of this game, when you're in the fucking city and the fat guy is buying the Christmas presents and Bayonetta's shopping and the fucking jets come in and it's a whole big to-do in the middle of New York City. It really sets the tenor for what is a consistently outrageous game. Mm-hmm. And it pairs that with quite satisfying combat mechanics that never feel overwhelming. For me, I think something like a DMC goes a little bit too far into like traditional fighting game maneuvers you gotta fucking pull off that my thumbs can't do. I think Bayonetta finds a great intersection between accessibility and depth, especially with the mechanic of witch time, which would in which a perfectly timed dodge stops time for a moment. and it just makes this great gameplay loop where time is always changing, and you're stringing these combos together that are moving in and out of real time, and it's all quite compelling. And Bayonetta, just a great character. Bayonetta 3, one of my most anticipated games next year. I'm very, very glad I finally gave Bayo 2 a shot.
Good for you. You know, good. Look at this happy little fella talking about a sexy witch lady. That's all I needed in my life.
Sexier in Bayonetta 3, I will say, and Bayonetta 1.
Uh-oh.
But still very sexy in Bayonetta 2. Let's be very clear here. Bayonetta is very sexy in all of her games.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to spin off that one. So I'm just gonna go to my number 5, which is probably the most Tucker Hazel game you could possibly imagine. Which is surprising that's not higher. But Murder by Numbers is a Picross game, which is the most Tucker Hazel game you can possibly imagine. But a Picross game placed into the framework of a genuinely compelling murder mystery narrative with phenomenally written characters and a really great aesthetic that is built up by its tone and its music and its world building that I just became so unnecessarily engrossed in. This game puts Picross into a context. Finally, not just any context, but a context. Sure. The idea that you are playing as a robot who needs to scan things to learn what they are to add it to his fucking digital brain arsenal. You're completing the puzzle because he's like, what the fuck is this? Like, one of the first things you do, I think, is he's looking for keys in someone's purse. And he's scanning a thing. He's like, "Oh, what's this?" It's like, "This keys." It's like, "No, that's a tampon, you stupid motherfucker." And it's just got a ton of charm. The characters are so well written, and it's got the most banging jazz soundtrack I've ever heard in my goddamn life. I really think this game is phenomenal, and really special for Picross. Sure. I mean, the idea of just completing puzzles in a vacuum was enough for me. I mean, considering I had like 3 fucking Picross games on my list last year, and I've got 2 this year. But this game takes that to another level. And I really, really do think it's very special.
Yeah, I think that I joke about playing Picross games all the time. Yeah, but if I were to ever...
Maybe every other week.
Basically, every time you bring up Picross, I say I'll play it for the following week and never do.
Yeah.
But if I were to ever actually make good on that promise, it would be with Murder by Numbers. Because I think that the idea of centralizing this gameplay in this larger narrative and world is really clever.
Yeah.
But Tucker, I'm going to come here and steal a game that I know is on the top of your list, and that's Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Is it in the next spot even?
I'm not gonna tell you.
Okay, well, here's what I'll say about Pikmin 3 Deluxe. I had Pikmin 3 back on Wii U, and I played it, but I never got it.
Actually, I never really got it. Let's just put it in the next slot. I'm gonna sure. Switch things up, and we can just talk it. We're gonna do a fucking rock block.
A little Pikmin party.
Yeah.
I had it on Wii U. I played it a little bit, but I never truly got into it. It was on the Switch version that I got back at launch last year that I was quite compelled by the game, and then I never finished it. Nope. It was actually this year when I got all the way through the game, and it's just remarkable. It's so lovely. Yeah, the game is so fucking lovely. Beautiful environments, great puzzle design, such personality between the captains, the Pikmin, the fruit juice at the end of the day, the narrative framing of it all. This is one of the best games Nintendo has ever made.
I definitely agree. I mean, it's not one of my favorites, but I mean, it is. Well, it's one of my favorite games I've ever played.
Yeah,
it's not one of my like top 10 Nintendo games.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean a lot because I like a lot of fucking Nintendo games. This is obviously still one of my favorite games that I played this year. Pikmin as a series has always fascinated me, but I always was looking at like Pikmin speedruns and playthroughs and be like, it's a lot to worry about. Fucking finding food and planting the Pikmin and then they die and I gotta throw them and manage different types. And I always thought like, I don't think my brain is big enough for this. So I just never played fucking Pikmin. But when I'm sitting on a fucking plane at an airport or whatever, and I'm like, I don't have anything to do, but I have Pikmin 3 Deluxe installed on my Nintendo Switch. What do you think I'm gonna fucking do? Who do you think I am? I'm gonna play Pikmin 3 Deluxe. And I did. And I beat this game in just a handful of days because it's one of those gameplay loops where you have to find out what's going to be next. You got to find out. You got, the last day I could have gone and picked up this thing, but I didn't. Okay, I know exactly where to go. But, oh, hey, look, there's a little wall I can break down over there. That's going to probably give me a new area. So I might as well head over there if I need to. And it's such a perfectly designed loop that takes away the pressure that I think maybe the earlier games have of you have a food limit, but not fucking really, because you have like 600 fucking juice by the end of the game. So what are you going to do? Run out of food? Probably not. But the aesthetic, the idea, the way that the characters are written to be exploring this world and putting it obviously in the Pikmin universe, but having Louis and Olimar sort of be this backgrounded thing that's fun for sort of world building, I really found to be super compelling. And it does really make me want to try, believe it or not, Pikmin 1 and 2. Yeah. How I'll do that, unclear, but Pikmin is a series that I'm now solidly a fan of. And who knows? Hey, Pikmin review coming in 2022.
I've actually almost bought the game off eBay so many fucking times.
You and I are fucking birds of a feather, piece of a pod, whatever.
The last thing I say about Pikmin is your like hesitation about the game being too much to manage, I think is really apt because it illustrates how expertly designed this game is.
Yeah.
Because
it introduces things to you at such a natural pace that you don't feel overwhelmed. I guess maybe I was just looking at like, middle of the game gameplay and they're throwing fucking Pikmin everywhere and all this shit. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this, but it never feels overwhelming.
No, because this is the Pikmin game with the most shit in it. It's got 3 captains and a shit ton of Pikmin types to manage, but it feels very understandable. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliantly designed game.
I did never really get too far into micromanaging multiple captains. Like I would have maybe one off doing a thing and then I'd forget him. I'm like, oh shit, that's right, Brittany's over there. I gotta fucking zoop over there and see what's going on. But Pikmin 4 having 4 captains, that's not going to really change much for me because I'll still probably just be playing one the whole time.
Yeah.
Pikmin 4 is never going to exist.
Speaking of our brains not being big enough, my brain is not big enough to have multiple captains doing multiple things, except for when the game explicitly demands that happens. So
yeah, which made the way, like challenge levels very difficult for me because you have to micromanage those. There's no fucking choice.
I really hope because Pikmin 4 is real. Let's stop beating around the fucking bush. Pikmin 4 is a real game.
Yeah. Will it ever come out?
That is the question. Not does it exist and well is it going to release? But I really hope it's completely tangential. But I really hope the gimmick is not 4 captains. I hope the gimmick is something different.
Yeah, I don't think it would be. I think 3 is a good balance.
I think you gotta even pair it back to 2, honestly. But Tucker, now we're all fucked up. I've got 3 games left to talk about.
Wait, how'd that happen?
How many games?
So do I. Who the fuck do I think I am? Yeah, this is both our number 4.
So it makes sense for you to go next, I think. No, me to go next.
No, it makes sense for you to go next. Yeah.
Okay. Tower Wars. I'm gonna say Tucker. It's time to talk about Star Wars, but I said Tower Wars because they're talking about Vader Immortal. Mm-hmm. Vader Immortal. We had a little bit of a discourse about it a discourse in the Discord about this game because our friend Sarah said that she thinks the game is really bad.
I think she gave it a 2 on Blurb.
And she's not necessarily wrong, depending on what metric you look at this game from. Mm-hmm. A lot of my love for this game is purely subjective because much like a lot of early VR software, this is far more of an experience than a traditional game.
Yeah.
You're basically involved in an interactive virtual reality Star Wars narrative opposed to a video game experience like Squadrons is.
Yeah.
And for me, that's totally fine because VR makes me sick and I can't be in it for very long.
Yeah.
But Vader Immortal across its 3 episodes is the perfect length and the perfect amount of movement and interactivity to where I felt totally immersed in a Star Wars story, but never motion sick because of it. I think it plays perfectly to the strengths of PSVR in terms of it gives you a lot of fun stuff to do. You jab and buttons, pushing your levers on inside your ship, climbing ladders, fighting with your lightsaber, using the blaster, using the Force, but it never overcomplicates it. And through that lens, as an entry-level VR experience, I think it's quite special.
Sure.
And Star Wars is the media franchise that has meant the most to me across my entire life.
Believe it or not.
So the fact that I got to be in a Star Wars experience and use the Force and wield a lightsaber and be totally immersed in VR through that lens, this is one of the most amazing gaming experiences I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
Period.
It certainly seems like it. Whew. Let's bring it back to what was initially my number 4. But when you said Pikmin 3 and I want to do a rock block, I realized I like Pikmin 3 a lot. But you know what's better than Pikmin 3? By a fucking smidge, not by a ton. Ratchet and Clank 2016 for PS4, which is a game that I beat in 24 hours, I believe. And it's not a particularly short game.
No.
I mean, it's like a 10, 12-hour game. But you think that fucking matters? When I'm playing Ratchet and Clank and I've got the most, personally, I think, although we'll get to what's a little bit better than this, the perfect gameplay formula of upgrades and combat and storytelling and exploration and collectibles and everything just firing on all cylinders. The one thing this game lacks is a super compelling narrative, but because it was shoehorned into a fucking movie tie-in and all that horseshit. But that doesn't hold back the game's greatness at all. I really don't think. Or well, it does a tiny bit, but not enough to really matter on a scale.
Understandable.
But I found a series that is just important to me now in playing Ratchet and Clank 2016. And I fell in love with the world and the characters and the gameplay loop and all of its unique ideas. And guess what? There's a lot of Ratchet games for me to fucking play when I want to. There's a whole kit and caboodle of them. And I'm very happy I finally got introduced to it because I've had this game sitting on my shelf since the day I got my PS4. This was one of the first games I ever got from my PS4. I played the first 30 minutes of it, whatever. Didn't really give a shit. But I, again, obviously gave a shit because I played through the entire game, almost platinuming it in 24 hours. And that doesn't happen to me very often, getting that enraptured by a game. So Ratchet and Clank 2016, I think deserves more praise for being one of the more unique games that Sony put out in its mid PS4 generation, because a lot of games were falling into archetypes, the third person fucking adventure game. And of course this is that, but leaning into platforming elements and a little bit crazier combat gives its own flavor. And I like this game a lot.
I think, Tucker, you should get the Ratchet and Clank trilogy on Vita. I think that'd be a fun way to play those first couple games for you. I had that on my Vita. I thought that was a really fun way to play through them.
Though I believe that goes for like $80 now.
Get it digitally.
I can't figure out the digital Vita store. I went to go buy the digital Vita game the other day, and it was like, that's not your password. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? I literally just typed this in and it logged me into my PS store. Why won't you let me put in my password? The Vita store is weird. I will figure it out. I will buy some digital Vita games, but the Vita's fighting me on it. It doesn't want me to. So what the fuck?
Understandable. The Vita just wants to die. It wants to die.
It's trying its best, but I won't fucking let it.
Tucker, let's correct the record with my number 2, because it's finally time for Tetris Effect Connected. I genuinely believe that Tetris Effect Connected is the most perfect game I've ever played.
Wow. Okay.
I think Tetris Effect Connected is transcendent. It transcends beyond what I traditionally connotate as metrics for success for a game.
Sure.
Because it's this harmonious intersection of art and culture and mechanics and sound and visuals, and it just becomes an experience.
Yeah.
The act of playing Tetris Effect, that journey mode, is impossible to describe what, for me, it evokes emotionally by having all of these intertwining artistic tenets and cultures and styles collaborate.
Yeah.
There is nothing like Tetris Effect Connected. And I love it.
Yeah, it is the first Tetris game.
You make a strong point.
Nothing
but
like
I think the fact that it manages to Hatris. Faces Tris.
Faces Tris 3, goddammit. Oh, that everyone go watch the Donkey Tetris video.
That's one of his best videos. But I think the fact that for me it's able to move so far beyond Tetris is a testament to what it accomplishes by its own merit.
Sure.
It takes a timeless, impossible to flaw gameplay formula and makes it something that finally feels distinct and original and sophisticated.
True. Yes.
It's incredible. Simply incredible.
It's funny to me that, I've always enjoyed Tetris fine enough. I was more of a Dr. Mario guy, fucking believe it or not. But the idea of, after what is it, almost 30 years of fucking Tetris at this point, we finally got a Tetris game that does feel like more complete than the original. I mean, it is the experience of the original cranked up to what modern hardware and modern design philosophy can do. And I think that's what makes it really impressive. This is not necessarily a gimmick Tetris game. We've gotten a fucking bazillion of those. This is, for all intents and purposes, just Tetris, but it's taking just Tetris to what it could have been, should have been on that original hardware. It's the experience of playing Tetris, but the mental experience put onto the screen. And I think that's a very impressive translation.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Time for our number ones, Tucker.
Untrue. I have two more. How'd that happen? No, I go next and you go, then I go. Fuck you.
I only have one more game.
Yes, if I go now and then you go and then I go.
Oh, no, that works.
Okay, you messed me up. All right. Ratchet and Clank is a very perfect gameplay loop. That exploration, the collectibles, the combat, the story, all that. Great. Cool. Very good.
I know one of these games. That's what I want. I'm very curious about what this game is going to be.
But you know what is really just, it really is just the Dark Souls of video games, is Dark Souls. Because Dark Souls is an influential game, fucking believe it or not. And we're saying that a lot this episode, but I think it's because we're playing a lot of games that are obviously very influential. Dark Souls takes adventure game formula and the idea of upgrades and explorations and bosses and world building and turns them to not 11, but like 15. Like there's no design like what Miyazaki does with his world building. The amount of nuance in place variety and intent for every like object placed in the world is genuinely unmatched. This game and my number one took me to a place where I was disappointed by almost every game I played subsequently because they're not Dark Souls. The depth and variety of combat is unmatched. Well, not unmatched because obviously Miyazaki's done fucking 5 of these games now. But the world design and lore and the way all that tunes together to make an experience that is not solo. This is a community game through its online interactivity and the way that you can summon other people and through the way that the storytelling is not overt enough to be able to capture it on your own. You need the world to work with you on this. You need to discuss this game. You need to discover this game and listen to what other people noticed that you didn't in a way that not a lot of games facilitate in their storytelling and the world building. There's no, for the most part, there aren't cutscenes. There's not really characters with extreme dialogue that you can talk to. There are a few, but the way that it creates a sparse world that you yourself are immersed in is so incredible that there really is nothing like it. It is truly the Dark Souls of video games. And if you had told me at the end of last year that Dark Souls would be one of my favorite games of all time, I would have called you a fucking asshole because I just did not like difficult games. But I think what Dark Souls did to me, primarily my number one, is show me that there is something more to a game than difficulty. And I wanted to experience the game, what the game had to offer so badly that I pushed past my fear and distaste of difficulty in games. And what I found was more strategy than difficulty. I really did not find Dark Souls 1 to be as impossibly, painfully, ridiculously difficult as the game is sold as. And I think that's unfair. I think the Souls community paints an unfair picture of their own games. I think these games should be more accessible because they are more fascinating than just their difficulty. The games are great because of their combat, their world design, their lore, the environments, the gameplay, the fucking enemy design, all that. It's not just the difficulty. And anyone who tells you that is, in my opinion, not playing a Souls game right. I think it's a more complete experience than just getting your ass handed to you.
Now, would you like to swag you directly into your number one? And
no, not really. I want to split them a little bit.
Split it up a little bit? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Tucker, I told you that I pulled a devious lick on you for this video.
You did. And I've been sweating about that the entire episode.
Something's missing from this list.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. So you're number one, right?
Well, in a manner of speaking, because I think it's more like 5 games that might be missing from this list.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because my favorite game of 2021, Tucker, is Halo the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah, okay, that's a reasonably devious like.
And that encapsulates Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2,
Halo
3,
Combat Evolved technically doesn't count, so we'll count all the other ones.
Halo 4, Halo Reach, and I'm even counting Halo 5 Guardians because you can launch it through the main menu of Halo Master Chief Collection if you have 5 installed.
And you can count ODST even though you haven't played it because it's part of it.
Yes. Tucker, the Halo Master Chief Collection disc and everything on it is my second favorite video game disc of all time. Period. I have played over 100 hours of Halo this year.
Mm-hmm.
I have never in my entire life fallen head over heels for a franchise the way I have fallen for Halo.
It's been terrifying.
I think that I wrote this down here because I wanted to make sure I had it accurate here.
Guys, this is a fucking historic moment. Diener took notes for a video.
1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I had 9 just in Master Chief Collection, 9 distinct Halo plays across playing these games for the first time, then replaying them the same year.
Yeah.
I just don't even. It's just Halo. What am I supposed to say here?
Yeah.
The world is so unnecessarily rich and interesting. Its intersection of the campiness and with like its philosophical, theological elements in like 2 and 3, and then the way that carries on into the 343 stuff. It is not what I expected when I began the franchise.
Sure.
I didn't understand how much heart Halo had because there is so much heart here. And that on top of the fact that these games, most of them are just fucking incredible first-person shooters, is just this convergence of everything I love. It's world building and mechanics first, design philosophies and brilliant feedback loops and memorable characters and one-liners and amazing music and set pieces and scope and heart. The Master Chief Collection there's nothing like it. There is no better video game collection, period. The fact that 343 has even gone back in and expanded upon a game like Halo 3 with new maps, armors, all of this stuff. This is a touchstone game release.
The thing that impresses me most about the Master Chief Collection is it's the bar. It's beyond the bar, I would say, for video game preservation. Is these games would be available on the console because Xbox has great backwards compatibility, but putting them into a collection that still allows you to play online for all of them allows it to be integrated into modern hardware in a seamless way, and above and beyond takes the classic art style, the updated art style for 1 and 2, takes the fucking spin-off games of Rage and ODST and integrates them in there. This is not just the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy or the Nathan Drake collection, both of which are great collections in their own right. But there's just like, well, what if we just did what you should do? Like, what if we just took it to its natural conclusion of these games still being very accessible and playable on modern hardware?
It's that, but it goes beyond it because like this
beyond.
This is content from Halo Online. Yeah, that's where these maps are coming from, and that game is fucking dead and buried in the ground. 343 paid tribute to Halo in Bungie's legacy here beautifully, and then integrated its voice into that collection too. Yeah, because Halo 2 Anniversary was the selling point of Master Chief Collection. That wasn't standalone. That was the big kahuna when you got that disc on day one, especially because the multiplayer didn't work. So the other component of Master Chief Collection is very special. It's also an incredible redemption arc for 343. It was their stretch before the leap of Infinite. Sure. And so for all of those reasons, it's phenomenal. And then on my final note on it would be, from a subjective level, this has been the game I needed this year. 2021 has been a lot of things for me, but above all of them, it's been very challenging for a number of reasons. And Halo was there for me every single time I needed it. Yeah. And
I'm just imagining Master Chief in his fucking bulky Spartan armor with his dopey one-liners coddling you as you whimper into his armpit.
Absolutely.
Someone draw that.
Sure. But Tucker, that is my number one game of the year.
I'll allow
I'm
it.
fucking breaking the I already accidentally put a game I'd replayed on here, so the rules are already out the window.
Now
But
can we quickly repair that a tiny bit by saying what would
sure.
have been like pushed up one slot? What's at the
Oh,
bottom?
Star
What's
Wars
your
Renegade
22nd?
Squadron, I suppose
Oh,
would have made that cut.
okay. Yeah, I guess it tracks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very cool game, but
Yeah. Well,
I can't let it take Halo's moment right here. We talked enough Star Wars today.
that's a great point. Yeah. Year of our Lord 2022, no Star Wars talk. That's my my BLB promise.
You're in big trouble when Lego Star Wars comes out, and I only play that for a month.
That really worries me. That really gets me sweating.
It'll be several episodes of BLB in a row where my primary game that I discuss is Lego Star Wars.
That's no different than Halo Infinite. Absolutely no different. Okay. All right. You said you discovered a franchise with heart here this year. What I discovered was a game that is unequivocally missing its heart. There's a hole there, but intentionally so. This is probably one of the dreariest, most despondent, fucking gross, nasty slime oozing out of every whole game you can possibly imagine. But Bloodborne is one of the best games ever made, and I don't think that there's much of a contest. It takes everything that I said about Dark Souls, but makes it more fluid, more unique, more accessible to play, more variety, fucking better online, blah, 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 all of this stuff, and just enraptured me in a way that I think, like what you were saying with Halo, came to me at a very important part in my life. I was having a very tough time when I started Bloodborne, and I didn't really have anything going for me when it happened. But after 2 or 3 attempts at getting through fucking Central Yarnum in Bloodborne, I sat down and was like, no, I really should actually give a shit one time. I should. What more is in this game? And what really took was me discovering that this world of flesh falling off of people's bones and a fucking religious sect injecting ancient blood into people and creating essentially fucking gothic AIDS that destroyed an entire town, and a world in which you are the only sane person except for a few straggling lights of hope. That this also has a deep lore to it. As I said with Dark Souls, and even more true here, there is no object in this absolutely massive interconnected map that is out of place. It all has, like, you see a fucking coffin sitting there. Okay, that's because this family had someone die, and the fucking carts that go around, these giant beasts that are pulling these fucking things, needed to come and pick them up, but they didn't because a city burned down, and the fucking priests that controlled them fell into a fucking tower, and this beast took it over the city and all this shit. Like, there's no thing that's out of place here in terms of design or lore, and it's the combination of those two that puts this leagues above essentially everything else in the industry. And I do think that Elden Ring could surpass that. Of course, I'm not going to say definitively. Game's not fucking out. I have not played it. But the idea of placing this into an even more accessible and open environment, and the storytelling of, I haven't fucking read, not Lord of the Rings, but fucking Game of Thrones, of George R.R. Martin's writing style combined with the Miyazaki storytelling, I really do think that we have something special on our hands. And the only reason I'm able to appreciate that is because I was able to get enraptured by Bloodborne. There's no more satisfying combat. There's no more satisfying exploration than everything being rewarded in gameplay and story. I really do think that this is one of the greats of all time. And I, even more so than Dark Souls, this game made me just kind of hate other games. I'm like, why can't you guys do this? Why can't you guys reach this level? Like, why is there only one godforsaken creator in this fucking industry that is creating things on this level? It if this gets a fucking PC port, I hope everyone else and their goddamn mother plays it, because it still does run at like 45 frames per second. It's not flawless technically, but it could be very easily. And then I think it would be unequivocally one of like top 10 games ever designed. I don't think there's any fucking shadow of doubt about that.
I really would like to play one of these. I really would.
Bloodborne is the good start. Well, I'd say probably Elden Ring will be the good starting place if you do want to try it, because I do think that game will have more accessible options and more freedom, which is something that people do find frustrating about these games, is they do railroad you in certain points. But man, it would be very interesting for me as a new Souls player to be able to guide someone else along, because there is something to experience here that it's difficult to explain, because it is so leagues above everything else in its design that before this I was like, it's fucking Dark Souls. Yeah, it's influential. Yeah, it's hard, but like it's just fucking swords and dragons. Like, I don't really give a shit. But there's a care here that no one else does. And I would say not even Nintendo can attest to the amount of design intent that these games fucking have. It's absolutely immaculate.
Well, I will play one.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like as you're explaining it to me today, I feel like I'm understanding them in a way that I never really did before.
Okay, sure, yeah.
This sort of notion of they're not narrative driven, they're environment driven.
Yes, it's environmental storytelling. Yes,
and they're environmental storytelling, gameplay driven experience like this.
Yeah,
especially something a little bit faster like Bloodborne, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I would also just like to give it a shot because they're very important to you. You've fucking suffered through Halo.
Mm-hmm. And as I will, 2022 will be the year of Halo for me.
Of course. So maybe next year will be the year of one soul. Maybe one soul game.
Yeah.
Maybe George Railroad Martin's game, but something about Bloodborne's aesthetic also really interests me.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The gothic aesthetic is very cool.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
Tucker, we did it.
We fucking did it. 21 games from 2 boys. 2 individuals.
We'll be back for an indiscriminate number of 2021 specific games.
Yeah, we have not decided specifically yet.
And worse games than these on the whole.
Well,
I think because the point I wanted to leave this on, for me personally, is that more than half of the games I played this year were older titles. And by and large, for me, they were better. There's a handful of probably like 7 to 10 2021 games I played this year that I thought were truly excellent.
Yeah.
And a lot that were whatever. But this year was really a testament to the fact that the backlogs ought to be played, because just looking forward is not nearly as rich as also looking back.
Yeah, so. I think what we did this year, and the reason I'm very happy that we're able to talk about more games by splitting up these videos, is prove that just following the new games, as you were saying, looking forward, is not as interesting, I would say, as combining the two. I also played, I played like 30 2021 games, but I'm
about there too.
I played like fucking 170 different games this year, which means that, I played a lot of older games this year. Fuck, it's insane. But I do want to give 2021 credit where credit is due. I had to drastically alter what my top 21 was going to be, because actually about half of them would have been new games this year.
Let's see. Mine would have been, well, we'll get to it, but I had to do some alterations too. Not as significantly as you, but I had quite a number of good indies to talk about in the next video. I'll say that much. But
hold on.
He's counting. He's counting. This is always hard for Tucker to do.
Yeah.
Actually, if you were able to see below the screen, he'd be going 1, 2. He has to finger count.
I had to remove 15 games.
Fine, I'll give you a fucking number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think
that's a lot.
13, 14, 15.
That's a lot.
16.
I can't tell where the actual number was intended to stop.
I think it might be around 16.
That's
But the
actually
point,
more than me. That's a lot of 2021 games.
but also
That's
it's
actually
like,
most of them.
I think it's like half or below half of the games I played in 2021.
Sure.
Whereas I feel like the vast majority of all the games I played this year were quite good.
I think it also just speaks to the two different exploration philosophies that we have, in which I played a bunch of harsh shit that I did not care about. I played a lot
Yeah.
of fucking just dumb, mediocre games this year.
Like
Christ. I played a lot of bad
what's
games.
something I could make fun of you for? Pretend it's bad.
Pretend what's bad?
Ratchet and Clank.
Oh, great point. Yeah. All right. Well, with that, with an insult to me, always a perfect way to end off an episode. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I don't know
You're
how
welcome.
long this video is, but I don't
Like an
care.
hour and a half.
I don't give a piss. It's gonna be uploaded, and you're gonna fucking enjoy it. Take what you can get.
Happy New Year,
Lazy
also.
bastards. Oh, I should find a recipe for gruel. One day back, Anna Tanner, time for fucking dinner. And I bring the pot over. I got a ladle and a little fucking hat on. No, it doesn't. It's not a chef's hat of any kind. It's a fucking hat. I don't know what kind.
You got like a fucking engineer cap on.
I was thinking more like a train conductor cap. Down that shit down your big boy throat.